first person this week is Senator Chris Coons. Thanks so much, Senator, for stopping by today.
Great to be with you, Sharon.
I want to start with Afghanistan and, your reaction to the president's plan of sending several thousand more troops to the country.
Well, President Trump faced the same situation that President Obama did when he came into office. He ran for president saying he wanted to get out of Afghanistan,
right,
that he saw it as a war without end and as a war without good options. And then after weeks of meeting with his national security team and generals with deep experience in Afghanistan, like his predecessor, he came out instead suggesting that we extend our engagement in Afghanistan and we increase our troop strength. A key difference here is that President Trump is adding a few thousand troops. Currently, we have about 8,000 American troops in Afghanistan. He'll add 3,000 or 4,000 more. President Obama surged our troop strength to almost 100,000. I don't see how adding a few thousand troops is going to significantly change the facts on the ground. And I think it's important we focus on what President Trump's strategy really is. It's to stay in Afghanistan as long as is needed to persuade the Taliban that they need to negotiate with us, and to not leave until we are certain that the Afghan government and its armed forces can contain the Taliban and control the country. I agree with him that in Afghanistan, that is a lawless country and is controlled by terrorists, is a very bad thing, would be a very bad thing for the United States, the region, and the world. But I think we need to have an honest conversation with the American people about just how long a conflict this may be, because I think the Taliban can outwait us for decades.
The president's call, though, to kind of erase that timeline, he changed his tune there.
That's right. He's changing from a timeline-based strategy to a conditions-on-the-ground strategy, and I think that's fine. I do think that in the Senate, we need to have a more detailed debate about exactly how this is going to play out, whether we're willing to bear the costs, and exactly how he's going to succeed in bringing Pakistan to our side and have them stop harboring terrorists, something that his predecessor worked very hard on as well.
During his presentation of that plan, what did you think about the way he presented it? Did you feel it was presidential?
This was a more focused speech for the president. He stayed on script, he stayed on message. I appreciated that he began with a call to national unity and rejection of hate and bigotry, and that he, at several points in the speech, thanked and recognized the sacrifices of our men and women in the armed forces. Roughly 2,300 Americans have died in Afghanistan in the 16 years of conflict so far, and we have dozens of allied nations that are also serving and sacrificing in Afghanistan. I thought the president's overall tone was fairly long on rhetoric and, sort of insisting we will win and we will achieve victory, and pretty short on details on exactly what we're going to do. I recognize that he may want to deliver the details of strategy in classified briefings rather than in a speech, but we need to have more details about exactly how we're going to succeed in Afghanistan.
Well, that said, that call for unity during that more measured speech, then a day later in Arizona at a rally, it almost seemed it was barbed, it seemed angry and divisive. So what do you think happened there? What changed there in a 24-hour time span?
I think over the months that he's been president, there is a pattern where the president, when he sticks to the remarks prepared for him by his staff and aides, is capable of being more measured, more presidential, of staying to the topic. When he goes to a campaign rally setup where he just speaks impromptu and responds to the crowd, and where that crowd is his core political base, he tends to go off the rails quite a bit more. I found
who's the real Trump then?
Well, I'm hopeful that as president, he will spend more of his time focusing on the real challenges facing our country, coming to the center with things like a workable strategy for Afghanistan, or a way for us to move forward, whether it's on the budget and spending, whether it's on confronting unresolved national challenges like education, infrastructure, immigration, job creation. There is a path forward for him as a centrist president, but he so far hasn't taken it.
Okay. But based on what you've seen so far, you do see there's potential?
Look, in order to be able to get on a train early in the morning and go to Washington, I have to remain optimistic. I think the president has a number of very capable national security advisors around him, and I'm insisting on being hopeful that we'll find a way forward together. I found his speech in Phoenix very troubling. The suggestion that he might pardon Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who's been held in contempt by a federal judge for violating a court order about racial profiling, is just a reminder that some of his instincts on the campaign trail really fly in the face of the core values of the American people.
I want to touch on Russia briefly. You and North Carolina Republican Senator Tom Tillis drafted some legislation to protect Robert Mueller from being fired. Now, Mueller is a special counsel leading the Trump campaign Russia probe, as you know. Was he in danger of being fired?
Well, President Trump made a whole series of aggressive or threatening or belittling tweets about his close friend and ally, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, about Bob Mueller and about the investigation. He has consistently dismissed the ongoing investigation as a witch hunt and something that has no substance to it. And he had expressly said that any investigation into his personal finances, the Trump organization, was a red line. And I think it has been publicly reported now that Bob Mueller has impaneled a grand jury and is seeking documents, evidence, witnesses about issues that relate to financial dealings with Russians by the Trump organization. So those facts were enough to lead Senator Tillis, Republican of North Carolina, to come to me and say, let's introduce a bill together. The bill simply provides for a remedy if Bob Mueller, who I'll remind you is one of the most respected, most seasoned senior federal law enforcement leaders, former FBI director, a Republican, nominated by a Republican, Senator Tillis and I introduced a bill that would give him a judicial remedy for reinstatement if he was fired without cause.
It's introduced now. Where does it go, or where is it right now?
It's been introduced. Senator Tillis and I have spoken to the chairman and ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, who are considering joining us as co-sponsors. We would need to get a hearing in the committee in September. The committee will be quite busy because we have a number of hearings that relate to the ongoing Russia investigation as well.
Another piece of fallout from the Charlottesville white supremacist rally and the counter-protest was the dismantling of that business leaders panel. You know,
Yes.
a lot of CEOs jumping ship. Is that a missed opportunity now that we don't have that panel there?
There are actually 3 different panels that have been disbanded, and I think in particular, manufacturing has been a priority, an area of focus and interest for me. And the one that was there to advise the president on how to strengthen and expand job growth in American manufacturing had some really seasoned, capable senior business leaders on it. I do think that's a lost opportunity. I have 2 bipartisan bills that relate to manufacturing. I actually had dinner with Kellyanne Conway right before we went out for the August recess to talk to her about it. I met with the head of legislative affairs from the White House to talk to him about it. I've been trying to get interest from the administration in bipartisan legislation around manufacturing. And I think without ongoing advice and engagement from business leaders who tend to be more centrist than ideological, the Trump administration is less likely to make real progress on manufacturing.
So are you optimistic or pessimistic then that there will be federal resources in any sort of upcoming budget debate for any manufacturing initiatives?
Well, I'm on the appropriations subcommittee for the Commerce Department, which is where much of manufacturing work goes. To me, one of the more concerning pieces of the president's budget proposal this year was the complete elimination of a valuable program called the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. It's only $130 million a year. It's in every state, all 50 states. It's got a demonstrated record of high impact, and it's done very well for small and medium manufacturers here in Delaware. On a bipartisan basis, in the markup of that subcommittee, we rejected those cuts. And so I expect in September, when we get back, the full Appropriations Committee will insist going forward on full budget support for a number of manufacturing programs, the MEP being not the least of them.
Okay, now as someone who's not running for office in 2018, what kind of election cycle do you predict it's going to be?
I think it'll be wild. The president went to Phoenix, Arizona, and fairly directly confronted Republican Senator Jeff Flake, who is an incumbent. Mitch McConnell, the Republican Majority Leader, is committed to defending Senator Flake. Senator Flake is someone I've legislated with, I've traveled with, and I'm struck at the division between President Trump who is supporting primary challengers to a number of incumbent senators and Republican senators running for re-election. Because of the way cycles work in the Senate, we have 6-year terms. 2018, the map is particularly tough for Democrats because 2012, 6 years ago, was a particularly good cycle for Democrats. So we have 5 particularly vulnerable Democratic incumbents. They're going to be running in an environment where President Trump is also out there campaigning regularly, and I think it's very hard to predict how this is going to play out.
Real quick, you've become a favorite go-to for several of the cable shows. You do the interviews, here out of our studios. Do you like doing those sorts of quick hitter interviews?
I like having the opportunity to speak to a very wide range of issues, and being on the Judiciary Committee and the Foreign Relations Committee has given me the opportunity to speak to a lot of issues facing our country today.
Do you find that there's a different tone to the interviews that you're doing for Fox News Channel as opposed to, say, CNN?
Yes, there are some noticeable differences in the tempo and tone and direction. I really enjoy a chance to be on Fox regularly. I've gone on a number of conservative talk radio shows. I try to be a voice of reason and to bring some balance and some sort of measured dialogue to what I think has been a fairly tumultuous 8 months so far.
Yeah, little exhausting too. Thank you so much, Senator Coons. We covered a lot. We appreciate your time. Delaware Senator Chris Coons, thanks so much again.
Thank you, Sue.